Hi, this is Pat McDonald, your host for Vote for Vermont, where our tagline is Listening Beyond the Soundbites. Joining me in studio today is Gerald Malloy, who is a candidate for U.S. Senator for Vermont. Welcome again.
Thank you, Pat. Thanks for having me back again. Great to see you.
Well, I wanted to catch up because we haven't had such an active campaign running against Bernie Sanders, who has been in office
34 years member of Congress.
34 years, wow.
Just about, January.
Oh, there you go. And it was a very interesting show we did, and we just wanted to catch up to see. I just cannot, I'm telling you, I ran for Senate one time, and I had trouble covering the little Senate, the Senate area, which now they've added Stowe to. I mean, how do you do Stowe? So I can't imagine running a statewide campaign. I mean, it must be exhausting.
It's challenging, but it's been great meeting Vermonters. I was in Jacksonville near the Mass border,
right
down south. I mean, I was up in Georgia at their fall festival. I was at the Underhill Festival over the weekend, which was perfect, Saturday and Sunday. So yes, a lot of travel, meeting a lot of Vermonters. They're ready for change and results and balance.
Yeah.
And so it's been, and I will tell you, just last week, two days, I spent 2 days walking the streets and door to door in Burlington, New North, Old North.
Nice.
Probably went to about 400 places just in 2 days, and that was very encouraging. Folks, like I said, are ready for change. Not 100%, but I met folks in New North. Said, there's a murder 2 doors down, not too long ago.
Oh, things have changed so much. The
up
crime.
on College Street, you've probably seen it.
Yep.
It's bad. So going against Bernie, I will say, Senator Sanders, I don't know why you keep pushing off the debate. There's been 3 you could have been at already. He's found reasons to not go.
Right.
We're trying to get at least 1 or 2, but he keeps pushing them out to end of October. And
well, he's been busy. He's been busy campaigning for the vice president, correct?
Yeah, well, he's definitely not busy lowering health care costs. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, there was, and I know you saw it, WCAX, I thought, did an excellent article on you and on Senator Sanders, and they really nailed the difference between Bernie and your platform and positions, and I thought they did a good job, and it was very clear there certainly is a difference.
Well, there's a lot of differences there. I hope every Vermonter saw that. I want to say thank you to Calvin Cutler. He came.
Isn't he great?
He is great. He spent a lot of time with me at Underhill.
Oh.
And that was Saturday, so I went through the parade, and he kind of showed me in the parade. Not to pat myself on the back, but if you watch the parade, that's a man of the people, meeting the people in the parade.
Right.
They showed Bernie off in some secluded woods. I don't know where, you don't see much of him in Vermont, but I hope folks listen to Bernie, 34-year member of Congress talking about I can have influence on some of the issues. Right. And then the thing I really liked is they showed him as the chair of the health committee, health committee, and it said he can grill the pharmaceuticals. That's all he's doing.
Right, exactly.
And those healthcare costs, as I've mentioned many times, have gone up and up, and just continue to go up, along with education and housing and food and energy. The costs have gone up, and it's just the whole socialist idea, and more government, more and more tax and spend is just not working.
No.
Calvin, I think, did a nice job showing the differences, and what I talked about is results. And I have 40 years of very relative experience, business, government, military, foreign policy. I did talk kind of a lot about actually being part of foreign policy in Europe, boots on the ground, in Europe, Asia, Persian Gulf, Middle East, producing peace. We don't have that now.
No, we don't. And
that
exit from, what was it, Afghanistan? I mean, that started the whole thing as far as I'm concerned. The whole world looked at us and laughed.
Saw weakness. Russia decided to attack, and then we were just talking about Senator Welch. So I debated Senator Welch 4 times. When I ran for Bernie, we ought to be doing 4, but he and I had different opinions about turning the spigot back on to fund Iran.
Right.
Previous administration cut it off. Current administration turned it back on. Billions of dollars.
And here we are.
Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthi, we're about that close to World War III.
Yep.
And it was a terrorist attack. That's the bottom line. It was a terrorist attack.
Well, and the same,
again,
it
my
just
opponent.
happened again when the last time we met. I know I had put together a list of all the problems that are here, and I was just thinking, maybe it was a month ago that you were on the show. We've got fires in the west, we've got flooding. I mean, people are, it's devastated. It's total devastation. You've got the wars continuing overseas. I mean, it just doesn't stop. And the hatred,
No.
I just don't understand it. And I think nobody wants to send, I do, but nobody wants to send weapons and stuff over to the Ukraine. I mean, what?
No, it should be
or
sent
to
away. It shouldn't
Israel?
have taken this long, and the weapons, I don't mind. Lobbing billions of dollars over to a black hole, I don't want that. But Israel's our friend, and I visited Burton Academy yesterday.
Oh, you told me that.
It was
How
fantastic.
wonderful.
The kids were fantastic. And thank you, Burton. That was a great
Isn't that
experience.
a great school?
Full class.
We should be so proud of it.
Yes. Beautiful school.
Yeah.
And a full classroom of honors, government, and politics. Young sophomores asked about a dozen really great questions, tough questions. Oh. And so that was a great experience. But one of the things I did talk about there was, terrorism isn't the answer. The folks had different ideas about even going back 75 years and the creation of Israel becoming a nation. But terrorism's not the answer. No. We can't accept that. So I support their right to defend themselves.
Oh, I do too.
Yeah, secure Israel.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I was very surprised that, I don't remember from my high school days when you do geography, but when you look at the map, I mean, Israel is this little sliver of land, and look all around it, and they're the only democratic nation. That's something to support in that region over there, because the word democracy isn't something they relish.
Yeah, I spent some time in Jordan.
Ah.
Actually, interesting. I talked to the kids about terrorism because I've actually lived in the Khobar Towers, later site of a terrorist attack in Saudi Arabia, lived in the Amman Radisson in Jordan, later site of a terrorist attack, flew out of Logan on 9/11 that morning, asked the guy
Really?
to
Oh my God.
on United, early. Got stuck in San Juan 3 days, and then I worked at the Joint Field Office in New York City right after
Oh,
that.
wow.
In New York City, for the 9/11 World Trade Center response. But Jordan's an ally. They're a friend.
Right.
I would say overall, our foreign policy failures in a lot of different ways have eroded a lot of the relationships we have around the world, actually.
Right. I have a lot of, as you probably do, a lot of Jewish friends here. My father worked for a Jewish company, and we were all involved in their ceremonies and bringing their kids up and stuff. And I don't get it. I honestly don't, but it's here.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the answer is, but I do hope Netanyahu succeeds. Because what else is their choices to have that hanging over their head? And they just did something on the ground the other day.
Right. Again, we talked earlier. I hope Vermonters see with all the legislation here is not representing the people of Vermont with all these, the 14% average property tax hike, the clean heat standard, which has potentially $3 a gallon for gas hike, maybe more. Vermonters can't afford that, and some other things that our Republican governor had 12 vetoes overridden in about the last 16 months. That's I actually did some research for about a 10-year period across the United States. Governor vetoes, it's about 5% that get overridden. We're at about 75%.
Wow!
So the Vermonters are not being represented. But and then it'll snap back to me. I was going to tell the kids something else.
What bothers me about all this with Governor Scott, he gets elected from both Democrats and Republicans. Right. I mean, those numbers are not just Republicans.
No, it's 70% plus, year after year.
And so he turns around, he says, "I'm vetoing this," and he wasn't quiet while they were discussing it. They were pretty vocal about don't do this.
Right.
And the energy bill, I think they got, the Sergeant at Arms office told me they got more don't vote no calls than even abortion. This was like outrageous, the amount of calls they got, and they did it anyway.
It's not representation, and I was going to say something else. So at the federal level, I hope all Vermonters see there are Americans being held hostage, and we were coming right up on a year.
A year, right?
In a few days, it'll be a year. So for all three members of our congressional delegation to protest Israel's prime minister visiting Congress,
Right.
Frankly, I think that's a disgrace.
It was,
It's
absolutely.
wrong, and that doesn't. And I think take a step. You know, I go back. Yeah, I've met some of the. I know now some of the senators, state senators that
Right.
were elected, almost 2 years ago. And I talked to him. I said, "Well, what's it like? What's it like in there?" And he's like, "It's worse than you might think. There's no collaboration. There's no
Right, no way,
discussion.
right.
It's my way or the highway."
Right.
And again, so we have these vetoes that have made, like our Republican governor talks about. I
Right.
talk about it myself: unaffordable, unsafe, and a place to leave. And I don't want that. And so we need balance and we need change.
We
I
do.
think Vermonters see it.
Right. And I think here, they're so not used to crime. And every time you turn around, every time you open a paper, there's something else more horrible than the day before. I don't know what's happening, but
Well, it's
they're
fentanyl
just-
that's coming in from the south, from China into
Right.
Mexico, and now, well, I can't remember the last time I was the dates, but did you see the Swanton sector report about the northern border?
oh, yes.
Yeah. So the last 10 months, as many illegal apprehensions, including known or suspected
just-
terrorists, last 10 months equal to the previous 10 years
Yeah.
combined.
Right, right.
So that's not safe.
No.
You think of the
Right.
terrorism going on around the world. It's happened right here in our country, and that we've got to secure the border. I think primarily because of fentanyl coming in,
Right.
but as a safety issue, and nothing against immigrants. Immigrants built our country.
Right,
but,
for sure. But there is a better way to do it, like the legal way.
Well, we have laws.
Yeah, right.
Let's enforce the
Oh.
laws. Yeah.
Oh,
and if
those.
the laws need to be adjusted,
Yeah.
that's what Congress does.
Right.
That's what Congress is supposed to, make an amendment or.
But they pretty much laugh at some of them. Either they don't pay attention at all, like the border, or they want it that way. I
Well,
don't
you got to
understand.
there's a couple of. Now you kind of dig deep into that, and there's some bad reasons, and then some really bad reasons why
Why they want it.
they want those open borders. Let's just say the bad one is for votes.
Right.
The really bad one, I think there's some people out there that don't even love America.
No, they
frankly.
don't. They don't. They want it to be run differently, with them in charge, of course.
Well-
But there you go.
Well, you made me think of something. This isn't funny at all, but did you watch Senator Sanders in his DNC speech?
No, I did not.
Okay.
I saw clips of it later.
I made
but-
myself watch it.
Yeah.
He spoke for about 12 minutes,
Oh,
and he called the current administration the most accomplished administration since FDR.
really?
Yeah, and I'm listening. I'm like, what? We're kind
Hello?
of detached from
Right,
reality.
right.
40-year inflation, record high gas prices, 2 new wars, a nation divided, which I can't stand. So there's one, and at the end, like you just said, so he talked about creating a different America. America was created, Declaration of Independence, individual freedom, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, and a government that's here to provide just enough water so that we can all enjoy that, liberty, rights, and freedom. Not whatever he's talking about, but the real thing that then I rewatched it just to make sure.
I never understood. He always says he's a democratic socialist or something like that with the word socialist in it. And I don't know
Right.
what that. I don't want to know what that definition is.
Yeah.
It's something about them being in control of everything. What it cracks me up with Senator Sanders? For years, he hated millionaires and billionaires. But now, he only hates billionaires because he is a millionaire.
Right.
You ever notice that? He just stopped. He just dropped it from his language.
Well, I was going to say, back to that speech.
Yeah.
There's one word he didn't mention the whole speech.
What?
Vermont.
Oh, good catch.
Yeah. That's,
But we don't. I don't.
yeah,
I don't.
and
remember when I've
I
seen
did the
him
roll
here.
call at the RNC.
Yeah.
And proud to do it. And I talked about, actually I talked about our motto, freedom and unity.
Right.
And so we need to, the Republican
together.
Party is going to reunite America
Yeah.
and get America back on track. And a lot of things underneath that, including some fiscal responsibility, securing the border. I think the next administration will bring peace back, both theaters. You know, and you know, for me, I want to. I think the Republicans want to be able to bring industry and jobs back to the United States.
Right.
All this talk about we're going to cut Social Security, no, I don't. I'm not going to. I'm not going to cut it.
Why
I don't
I
want to
can't
change
even
it.
imagine thinking about that.
We need to fix it.
Yeah.
And you know, I hope folks again, and you know, I know they're spending things. It's from both parties, but we're at a clip at $2 trillion a year now, up to 36
Can you imagine?
trillion. No, it's
Well,
you can't really even imagine how
I
big.
mean, that's a lot of zeros. I think I told you, my husband and I sat one day and counted, we wrote it out and counted how many zeros there were. And I kept having to rethink, well, what, it's a million, trillion, what?
Yeah.
Come on.
So it's it's out of control.
Too much.
I think
And
I'm
now this
going to
dock
save
worker-
a special line I have for the
For the
socialist
ed-
part. I'm going to save that because
What would you do if you were in Congress now about the strike along the whole eastern seaboard? I mean, that's going to cripple us. And he's proud of it. The union leader, he says he doesn't care. He wants to take us down.
yeah. So again, Republican Party, Democrat Party, more and more control and
Right.
I call it industrial policy. And I think one of the things that has happened is, frankly, I don't look at myself to be, and I work in the defense industry, so we just had a contract that went union. Oh, okay.
Right.
Workers decided that, great. Better wages, better working environment, great. But you have kind of a political influence on that and pushing an agenda, which I don't like to see. And I think that, frankly, that happened with the auto workers union.
Right.
And you look at all of that and what happened there. I said, well, what's the goal here? And shortly after that, Stellantis, former Chrysler,
Right.
they said, well, now we're going to lay off 2,500 people.
Right.
So, some checks and balances, but I think there's too much. The teachers' union, I think, is another one that I think got away from that kind of primary reason for being, of better wages and a better environment, and there's more politics in it, which I don't like to see that. So.
Yeah, I'm just worried what's going to happen if this goes on and on for another couple of weeks. I mean, already they're worried about all the fresh produce that's on these ships.
Right.
They're going to be dumping that. I
Well,
mean, it's
made in
really
America.
bad. Yeah, right.
Made in America
exactly.
is what we
There
need,
you go.
and then we won't have that level of an issue there.
That's
because
true.
It's made right here.
But to do it on purpose, to impact our economy, I think, and especially if we hadn't had all this, the flood and the devastation down south, that maybe not be so bad. But now all of these thousands of people are homeless and destitute.
Right.
And you're picketing so they don't put technology in your place? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
You couldn't wait a year? I'm very discouraged with that. I really am, I think.
Well, I think the economy is the main issue.
Yeah.
And, I saw a little comic strip and it had a red hat and it said, make groceries affordable again. Which
That's
sounds
great.
pretty clever.
Very good.
Pretty funny and so true. I
Right.
go grocery shopping and it's painful.
Isn't it awful?
And that 40-year high inflation is still with us. We've got so much debt. We are kind of teetering on we could have a recession, which nobody wants. But one of the things in the clip, the CEX clip, one of the things they caught me talking about, or had me posted me talking about, was 2% inflation.
Right.
$2 gas, $2 home heating oil. Didn't have 2 new wars. So the last 4 years, almost 4 years now, have not gone well, particularly for the economy.
Right.
And I think folks need to be objective about that.
Don't you think when push comes to shove, they really do understand what's going on? I can't imagine they're that blind to, because like you said, you go shopping.
Right.
It's right there in your face when you see, $50 for a steak. Are you serious?
Right. Well, right. It is hard to kind of comprehend, and even going back to economics, and one of the famous theories is if you take the money supply and you dump a lot, trillions of dollars into the economy, you're going to have inflation. And that's exactly what happened in 22.
Right.
I mean, so, how our government didn't see that, and then talk about housing costs,
Right.
and then I had inflation, all the tamping down impacts there. That took our mortgage rates from 3 to about 8.
Right.
So that between that and the inflation on the houses themselves, now it's cost literally twice as much to buy the same house. 30-year mortgage.
Right.
So.
Well, and you mentioned before, the energy crisis here is, the energy bill is just scaring me to death. They've started reporting on their, we had a study committee
Right.
to say how much this bill, S5, was going to cost us.
Right.
And you mentioned before, $3, $4.
Right.
This is Vermont. We get cold here.
Oh, I know.
You have to have heat. I mean, who can afford this? It's incredible.
Right. Well, right. January.
Yeah.
Not every January, but most
It must-
Januaries,
it gets
it's going to
cold.
be below
Yep.
zero
Yep.
every single day.
Yep.
And so, if it, and a lot of different estimates out there, but, if it is $3 or $4 carbon tax
Yep.
more, that's going to be devastating.
It's terrible. Yeah, and people are going to be doing foolish things, space heaters, things that cause fires.
Burn the
and
place down.
Well, yeah, it's going to be unbelievable. So I know one of the things that you and I talked about a lot, and I think there's a lot of discussion, I hope, in Washington about education, because we are not doing well as a nation, and I don't think we're doing so well here in Vermont, because we're not getting our return on investment.
Value.
We spend, I think we're down one, the second
We're
highest.
either 1 or 2 in the country.
Yeah, second highest. We used to be one, but now we're
right
2.
up there,
So-
$26,000,
Right.
$8,000 a year.
And what do we get
per
for it?
student. There should be concern, and I can tell you in a personal, standpoint, I've recently engaged. Hopefully, I didn't tell you this. I engaged a National Guard recruiter for Vermont and the Army recruiter, active
Great.
Army recruiter, and both of them told me, we're seeing a pretty significant spike in young people coming in and not passing what's called the ASVAB, the aptitude test,
Oh, really?
to join the military. Now that bar is not that high.
Right.
It's not.
Right.
And so that, to me, that's a pretty strong indicator of the value there. And I think Vermont needs to look at the costs associated with it. I actually think it might be kind of similar to the healthcare issue. So, Senator Sanders has been talking about healthcare for 30, 40 years,
Right.
and he I don't think I know he hasn't done enough to produce results to lower it, but he
Right.
obviously knows some of the issues there.
Right.
And the issue is, maybe in both, is that it's, like he talks about, it's not just patient-doctor, it's patient-doctor and 4 or 5 levels that,
Right,
and
right,
it just keeps
right.
going up. And so I think that it is going on in the education world. I'll tell you, Pat, doing Q&A and people, I've done some 3-hour ones, and folks will ask all sorts of questions,
Right.
which is great. And people are like, are you going to get rid of the Department of Education? And after you get asked that same thing enough times, you're
Right.
like, oh,
Maybe.
I should probably look into that, the
Right.
value added. So I actually responded to a questionnaire recently. I said, yep, Department of Education, Food and Drug, I think needs some, take a look at that. Possibly they're causing the cost of a drug to
Right,
be
right.
much higher than it should be. Although there's more background to it than that. And then I talked, working I've been in the military, worked in the defense industry for a long time. I think there's some shrinking down we could do there. Not capability, but even the intelligence community, which is enormous.
Yeah.
And whatever the number was 17. Maybe there's some way we could make it more efficient, more effective.
Well, I
reduce
must
costs a
say
little
that
bit.
we were talking about crime when you were on the show before about the catch and release.
Right.
But this thing with Trump being shot, the more they talk, the more disgusted I am about how they just messed it all up. I don't know how much was intentional or not. I'm getting to that point in my thinking, which is very bad.
Well, he's here by the grace of God.
Yep. One.
Twice.
Yeah.
But the first one, as the details were coming out there, and after a day or so, I'm like, okay,
Appalling.
prone position, 148 yards, you make that shot.
Right, you do.
And so he's, he turned and he's
Just-
like, thank God he's here. I know a lot of Vermonters don't like President Trump, but
But that doesn't mean they want to see you
well,
get
no,
shot
I don't
like
think
that.
anybody
I mean,
wants
my
that.
God,
But,
I hope not.
But policy-wise, yeah, that was a complete breakdown.
Right.
Complete. So yeah, that needs to be improved because,
So,
well, like we talked about, terrorism, and it's right when that happened Saturday, I was at the RNC. So I got there Sunday,
Right.
so Monday I was there when he arrived.
oh, he must. The place
unbelievable.
must have gone
It
insane.
was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I really felt like America was turning around and going back in the direction. And what I liked was in that short period, the rhetoric really tamped down.
Good.
It's sky high again now, and I.
Doesn't take much, does it? Just
No, and even my opponent, he says things about President Trump that
it has to stop.
if I were him personally, I wouldn't say.
I was just wondering, we just have a few, maybe 2 minutes. Well, I know,
Okay.
but 2 minutes. Do you want to kind of vote for me because
Sure. Well,
I think you've got a great handle on things.
thank you. I bring 40 years of relative experience. Like I mentioned, industry. I'm going to bring jobs to Vermont. I know I can do that. I've talked about an energy tech hub in Greater Burlington to develop reliable, affordable, safe energy solutions. I know I can impact foreign policy to deliver peace. I want to secure our borders. Because we have a fentanyl and crime crisis
Right,
here in Vermont.
right.
Vermont should not have that. No one lives in Vermont to be around a fentanyl and crime crisis.
Yeah.
I don't want to, reunite our country, and I will work across the aisle. And I think it's Vermonters realize, state level, federal level, the representation and the results are not there. It is time for change. Vermont's changed. Over time.
It has.
Frankly, we've gone, center right a little bit, and we are redlined
Right.
left. And we have a
We
Republican
used to
governor.
be center right. When
Right,
I
well,
moved
that's-
up here, it was
right.
like, whoa, I think I died and went to heaven.
Right.
Yeah.
But we've got to come back over here with some balance at the federal level because we don't have it now.
Right.
We have a socialist and 2 progressive left members of Congress, and then at the legislature we have the Get Real campaign.
Yep.
For the Vermont GOP's develop its common sense solutions, and that's what I'll do. Bring common sense solutions for a better future for Vermont.
Great. Thank you very much for coming back on. I love it. Thank you all for tuning in. Don't forget to vote. This is very serious this year.
Everybody.
This is Pat McDonald, your host for Vote for Vermont, where our tagline is listening beyond the sound bites.